Hello. I'm getting the, like, did it really start? It seems like it started. Hi, I'm Jim. And I'm out in the Michigan woods. I am looking, sitting next to a plant called Barberry, Berberis vulgaris or Thumbergii. The different barberry species are pretty much used interchangeably. And most of the time that you see information on them, it says to use the root bark. But look at this tangled mess of thorns and prickly stuff. Digging this up, because I've done it, is a pain in the tail. And then stripping the bark off of the root is also a pain in the tail, and you don't get a whole lot. So one day I was out just trimming the barberry growing over the trail, and I'm just going to use gloves here because it is prickly and thorny. Some people say use gloves when you're harvesting nettle, but I kind of like nettle sting. But prickly, thorny stuff, not so much. So I was trimming it, and what I noticed is, look how terribly, wonderfully bright yellow it is. With this plant, what that yellow color means is that there's berberine in here. Now, any plant that has a yellow color isn't necessarily berberine related. So your yellow dock doesn't have berberine in it. But if you know that a plant does have berberine and you see this bright yellow color, that's a good sign. So like, look, if we sort of scratch away the bark, this is wonderful. And this is all the way through the stem. There's no reason to dig up the plant and just to harvest the root when we could make use of the stem. And then I can cut it into small little sections and pound them up or blend them up to make a tincture with this. Traditionally, people have made decoctions with it. However, ew, gross. It's really bitter, and bitter isn't bad, but a bitter decoction, like a 10-ounce mug full of this, ugh. William Cook in his Physiomedical Dispensatory talks about infusing barberry into hard cider. When I love hard cider and I really like barberry, but ew, that would be like the worst way to flavor your hard cider ever. And then the next time you wanted hard cider, you'd have barberry flashbacks and it wouldn't be good. So you could do that, but really making a tincture is pretty wonderful. And you can just trim this up. You'll notice that when we get to the smaller branches, there's also yellow color, but not necessarily always. So maybe like up there, not really super yellow. I find that it's much more concentrated in the thicker parts of the stems. You can see here, I've cut here, I've cut this little section here. So those areas could also be harvested. And you know, if you grow in a place that has barberry, it's considered invasive, which means that there's a lot of it around to be harvested. And by cutting it back, you'll lessen the amount of seeds that fall back on the ground and control its spreading. So it's a pretty wonderful way to use this. It's used as a bitter because it's very bitter tasting, and that will stimulate the release of bile from the liver and the gallbladder, and has a mild laxative effect. It's not like a stimulant laxative like Cascara sagrada or Senna, but acts as a liver decongestant. So this can be helpful if there's any signs of liver stagnation. But the berberine in here is strongly antimicrobial. And so a few things that might be used for: ulcerations of all kinds associated with microbes. That could be ulcerations in your mouth. It could also be ulcers in your stomach. The berberine is active against Helicobacter pylori. It's also astringent, so in addition to fighting the infection, it's helping to tighten and tone the tissues that are affected. And for digestive related infections, this can be very helpful. And maybe more so, at least in my opinion, than golden seal, I feel that this is something that can be used for systemic infections. So a lot of times, if you were out west, you would use Oregon grapefruit, and a lot of herbalists out east use Oregon grapefruit. But we can use our barberry species that grow abundantly in this area and will not be ecologically threatened in any way from harvesting. So this is just one thing that you can gather. in the middle of winter when everything is snowy and it seems like there's not a lot to pick, barberry. Yay. Bye.